The cafeteria was alive with noise, laughter, the sound of trays clattering and sneakers squeaking against the floor, but for Emily, every step, or rather, every wheel, into that crowded space was a reminder that she did not belong the way others did. Emily was 16, her hair a soft chestnut brown that fell across her shoulders, her eyes carrying a spark of quiet strength, but her body was bound to the chair that had become both her companion and her cage. Years ago, an accident had taken away the use of her legs, and ever since, school had been an uphill battle, not because of her studies, for she was brilliant, but because of the cruelty of those who thrived on her vulnerability. She maneuvered carefully with her tray balanced on her lap, her hands firm on the wheels, moving slowly between tables filled with students laughing in groups, their voices echoing in a way that always made her feel smaller. She tried to tell herself she was invisible, that if she kept her head down, no one would notice her. But the problem was, they always noticed. Some admired her courage, but the ones who shouted the loudest were the ones who wanted to break her spirit. At the far corner, a group of boys sat hunched together, their laughter sharp, their eyes following Emily like predators watching prey. They were the ones everyone knew to avoid. The kind who threw paper balls in class, who shoved kids into lockers, and who thought mocking the weak made them stronger. Their leader, Jason, smirked as he spotted Emily wheeling herself to an empty table. "Look who's here," he muttered to his friends, the charity case on wheels. His friends snickered, and soon like hyenas circling they rose and walked toward her. Emily lowered her gaze, hoping, praying they would walk past, but hope was a fragile thing in moments like these. They stopped in front of her, blocking her way, their shadows falling over her tray of food. Well, if it isn't Speed Racer," Jason sneered, leaning down close to her face. "How's the ride today? Do the wheels spin faster if we push you downhill?" His friends laughed, the sound like knives stabbing at Emily's chest. She tried to ignore them, whispering softly, "Please, just let me eat in peace." But her quiet plea only fueled them. One of the boys reached out and tipped her tray, spilling food across her lap, the mashed potatoes smearing into her jeans. The cafeteria gasped, some kids turning away, too afraid to intervene, others pulling out their phones to record the humiliation. Emily's face burned, her hands trembling as she tried to clean the mess, her dignity breaking with every snicker around her. Jason wasn't finished. He circled behind her wheelchair, his eyes gleaming with cruelty. "You know what? This thing is your life, right? Let's see how strong it really is." Before Emily could protest, before she could scream for help, Jason grabbed the handles of her wheelchair and with a violent shove tipped it sideways. Emily cried out as the chair crashed against the floor, her body sliding painfully as she tried to hold on. The metallic clang echoed across the cafeteria, followed by the sound of laughter that sliced deeper than any wound. Jason stomped down on one of the wheels, bending it, breaking it until the chair lay twisted and useless. Emily lay on the floor, tears streaming down her cheeks, not just from the physical pain but from the deeper agony of being stripped of her independence in front of everyone. For a moment, silence fell. Some students whispered, others filmed, a few looked horrified but none stepped forward. Emily's heart pounded, her breaths ragged, her mind screaming that she was nothing more than entertainment for the cruel. She wanted to disappear, to sink into the floor, and never be seen again. But even in her broken state, she didn't cry out for mercy. She simply lay there, clutching the broken frame of her wheelchair, her pride in tatters. Jason smirked down at her, his friends grinning like they'd won a prize. "Wuss, you're going to have to crawl now," he sneered, his words dripping with venom. And then the doors at the end of the cafeteria opened. A hush fell over the room as a tall figure stepped in, dressed not in the clothes of a student but in the uniform of discipline and authority. His broad shoulders carried the weight of years of training, his sharp eyes scanning the room like a soldier entering hostile ground. This was Daniel, Emily's older brother, a decorated military officer who had returned home on leave. He had planned to surprise his sister at school, to share lunch with her, but what he walked into was a scene that froze his blood. His baby sister lay on the floor, her wheelchair mangled, her face streaked with tears, while a group of boys laughed over her suffering. His jaw tightened, his fists clenched, and the cafeteria seemed to shrink under the intensity of his presence. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Jason's smirk faltered as he met Daniel's piercing gaze, a gaze that carried the weight of battlefields and the promise of justice. The room was no longer a playground for bullies. It had become Daniel's ground, and everyone could feel the storm about to break. Emily looked up through her tears, her lips trembling as she whispered, "Daniel." And at that moment, every student in the cafeteria knew the bullies' reign of cruelty had just come to an end.